What's up, guys, and welcome to the Heroic Scholomance healing guide and kind of overall general guide from a healer's perspective. As always, abilities are going to be scrolling above. A couple things. First off, this dungeon is winning the award so far for longest, most annoying dungeon of the new map, Heroics. It is really cool that they've redone Scholomance. Did they need 5 bosses? No, they didn't. However, that's what we have, so that's what we're going to deal with. This first boss is has 2 phases, and it's actually pretty easy. The first phase, you pretty much, if you just stay on the edge of the room, the edge where you first walk in, like you just jump down the stairs and you just stay right on that wall that the stairs are connected to in the boss room. As you notice, that ice that's coming in, it comes in slower, and it comes in at a certain amount of time, and that's how much time you have to kill him. So if you don't get him down before that ice wall hits, you will die, and you will wipe. The second phase goes in after you kill this guy. He then switches into phase 2. He sits in the middle of the room, and then the fight actually involves a little bit more than just seeing what your DPS is for 15-25 seconds. Somewhere in there, just depending on your DPS. You can see here the DPS was a little low. Still managed to get him down. That's okay. In this phase, again, what we're doing is we are avoiding stuff while the DPS smacks them. As you can see, there's burning books flying all over the room. Don't get hit by the burning books. And that's pretty much all you have to do. The rest of the fight, it's pretty much just a tank and spank with some minor movement, a nice kind of intro boss to the dungeon, some really cool animations on this fight. But as you can see on the ground, there's really not a whole lot going on. There's really not a whole lot you need to watch out for. Again, as long as you're decent with movement, you'll be okay. That fight's pretty much that way, and then you're GG. The next boss fight, this one is a little bit more interesting. Okay, she has 2 main abilities. The one is her frontal cone, so make sure that the tank's facing away from the raid. If the tank faces you towards the raid, just run behind the boss. The frontal cone will hurt you slightly. It's not extremely painful, but it will hurt. So try to stay out of that if you can. The void zones, she will do those. And then there's this phase. And then this phase, you want to kill the ads. Okay, the quicker you can kill ads, the better, because the quicker you hit the ad that's her, it knocks her out of this phase, and then the AoE damage stops. So as a healer, what you need to make sure that you're doing is make sure that you have a cooldown ready, especially for this phase. This phase is probably, you're going to have the most damage of this entire boss encounter going out during this phase, so make sure that you save a couple cooldowns for this, just in case, because you never know what's going to happen. And it's kind of important just to make sure that you can, keep everybody alive, keep everybody but topped off, and then keep ahead of everything. So if you have downtimes beforehand, make sure that we're getting hots on guys. If you've got the mana to spend it. But let's stay ahead of the healing on that phase. And she will do that phase twice. As you can see here, there's the void zone in the middle. Don't stand in the void zone in the middle. It will hurt you immensely when it sucks you in. So try not to do that. Try not to get caught by that. And other than that, guys, it's pretty much GG again. As you can see here, we're going back into that last phase, and the whole time if you can help DPS, go for it. But for the main part of this fight, like during this phase, you're pretty much just throwing hots. Now keep in mind also that the tank has nothing to tank during this phase, so if you have to let your life blooms fall off so that you can keep keep some healing going on, go ahead and do that. If you want to let your hots fall off just to make sure that the tank, that everybody else is getting attention, it's not a big deal on this fight because, like I said, everybody's taking moderate damage. Just make sure that when you start to see the ads go down and the damage starts to get way more bearable, go ahead and make sure that the tank's re-dotted or re-hotted and re-ready to go, so that way when the boss pops back out, you can instantly pick her up, have no worries, and then from there on it's just a burn phase. You take this boss down, and that's pretty much a good game at that point. The next fight, kind of interesting. It's one of those fights where you just really kind of need to understand what's happening. There's a lot of mechanics, it seems like, but it's really not that difficult. The biggest thing that will wipe your raid, there's 2 things. See those big blue fire pillars? Don't stand in the big blue fire pillars. Those are very bad. They will pretty much 3-shot you. I did a test on that. Maybe it was by accident, maybe it wasn't. Not gonna say. Maybe it's not in this video, I don't think. But pretty much what you want to do is make sure you're not standing in those guys. that will hurt. Also, he will randomly throw something at you. When you first walk in, make sure that everybody gets a bone armor. And then he will randomly select a random player. He will throw an object at them, removing their bone armor. If he hits you again after your bone armor is removed, you will die. It is a one-shot ability. So what you need to do is as soon as you don't have bone armor buff anymore, go get another one. The only trick that you have to do during this fight is just make sure that you're not getting hit by the soul flame while you're picking up your bone armor. Stay somewhat spread out of the room and you should be okay. Those are kind of the main abilities of the boss. Keep in mind too that the boss will hit the tank relatively hard. The tank does need to get bone armor as well, because it will still, I mean, it'll literally one-shot anybody, guys, so make sure that you're getting that bone armor as quick as you can if you get picked, and that you're kind of standing in the general area of one. Don't stand right on it just in case Soul Flame comes, but make sure that you're close enough between two that if Soul Flame comes, you have a backup place to go as well. That's kind of the easiest way to do that fight. So I hope that one helped for that. And now to the fourth boss. This boss literally takes forever. The problem is there's some actually really cool abilities. It's actually not that bad of a fight. It's pretty fun, especially as a healer, just because there's some cool stuff going on. You're going to burn the ad down, or burn the boss down, and then at certain percentages it's going to drop down and it's going to drop different abilities. It'll suck you all in. It'll do a lot of different really cool things. The biggest thing that you have to watch out for, again, is you'll see that's the grip. You immediately spread out because everybody's spreading fire under their feet. Sorry. The trick is, during this phase, is what you want to do is make sure you're not standing in fire and kind of trying to kite your fire to the outside of the room so that everybody can still stay in the middle of the room. It's not the easiest thing to do. The fire will despawn, so keep that in mind. That, I mean, as you can see here, it looks pretty chaotic. Just have the tank bring him to the other side of the room that's not full of fire, and you should be okay. The easiest way to do this fight is to have everybody kind of sprint around one half of the room and have the tank just slowly drag the boss to the other side. That way you have an entire half of the room that you can deal with. And again, what you're doing in that phase is, as a DPS, a healer, or a tank, when you get that fire underneath your feet, we just, whatever your strategy is, whether it be around the outside or whether it be, you know, half and half, make sure that you establish that beforehand. It's not an imperative thing because it doesn't hurt that bad, but it is something that is a ton of avoidable damage if you can get rid of it. And especially if you're not a druid and you have to heal on the run while kiting that fire around, sometimes that can be a little hectic. So I recommend, if you can, and if you have the ability, with HOTS, this fight's easy. Like as a Resto Druid, for me in this fight, it was really, really simple because I could just throw HOTS out, I could pop Incarnation, I could pop Spirit Walker's Grace if I Symbiosis the Shaman. There's a lot of different things that I could do, but that was kind of the way that I dealt with it, so I hope that helps you guys on that. The only other real thing that this guy does is he will do a Fixate ability. And what happens is if you get Fixate on you, obviously you run away. Use any movement speed enhancements that you might have. Like for me, if I get it, typically it's Stampeding Roar first so that I can keep the speed buff up while healing. Otherwise it's Dash and then I can't heal until I'm done. Just make sure that you get as far away from the boss as you can once you get fixated. Because like I said, you can literally kite him around the room while the DPS burns him. And that's really the biggest thing. Obviously then he'll go back into his death grip. And as you can see here, we kind of all spread out around all, you know, just clustered the entire room. I mean, it's not terrible in the middle, but as you can see from the lines, it obviously wasn't coordinated. That's just a pure pug. And so, like I said, you can see that there's not a ton of damage going out, and there's not a ton of room that you can't stand in, but again, at least everybody spreads out in a somewhat normal fashion. The problem is I've seen some pug groups where everybody runs in the same direction and then everybody's getting hit, and it becomes a real taxing job for the healers to deal with. Again, he does it again, and I mean it's just something you got to deal with, guys. As a healer, just make sure that you're aware of that. Just make sure that you're aware what can go wrong, because it probably will go wrong. And as long as you're prepared for what can go wrong, especially in this dungeon and on this fight, you should be okay. The quicker you can get to a spot away from the boss, so just in case Fixate comes, you don't have to interrupt a cast to get away from it. Other than that, it's pretty much good game. The boss will come back up one more time, you just burn him down, and you're done. Final boss. This is pretty much just a simple tank and spake. Have the tank turn the boss away from the raid, and burn him down. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to get randomly, he's going to port players into the rooms outside. If you do get ported into one of those rooms, there's a couple different theories on it. I typically, what I do is just run over there's some things you can run over in the room. I run over the orbs, and then I go up to the door and I turn around and start DPSing the ads. I normally single target an ad, just try to kill them, because as a healer I don't really do crap for damage at all. So I do that, and then as soon as the door opens, you run back down. You'll probably have to dispel, and that's about it. That's the entire fight. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, Scholomance, pretty cool dungeon. Check it out, and thanks guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. See you in the next one.